All right, we're live. All right, welcome, everyone, to tonight's meeting of the Finance Board. Tonight, our chairman, Melissa, is home with unavailable to attend, so tonight I'll be your host. So let's get underway. Tonight, we can begin by approval of the minutes. Has anybody had a chance to look them over? Okay, yeah, so Ruth was here, Melissa, I, and Alex. Anybody, we good with them?
Oh, yeah, I'm good with them. I
wrote
wrote them.
So can we get a motion to approve the minutes?
I can't because I wasn't here.
You cannot, correct.
So the young man down
No.
the end, you're making a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second.
Melissa,
I'll second it. We do have a member remote, so all the votes will have to be through roll call. So Melissa?
Yes, that's fine. And just so you know, the Zoom keeps breaking up, so I can hear some stuff, but not everything.
Okay, we'll do our best. Mr. Scanlon is abstaining. Ms. Rod?
Yes.
Mr. Wood?
Yeah.
And I also vote in the affirmative. So next on the agenda, unfortunately, is the resignation of one of our members, Kerry Goodwin. That's unfortunate. I thought she'd make an excellent member of the committee. She seemed to be very enthusiastic and really kind of a go-getter, somebody we really needed on the committee. So it's unfortunate. I'm sure that she has very good reasons, but we lost a good member. So anybody out there would like to hop on board, we sure could use some members. We're right now short 2 members as well as 2 alternatives. So we could use 4 good people out there to want to step up to the plate and help us out. It's, believe it or not, this is probably one of the most important jobs or committees in the town. There's very difficult decisions to be made, and a lot of it involves your tax dollars. So we welcome any and all participants. But that also leaves us with a void in the Community Preservation Committee. So she was the FinCom member of that committee. Do we have, at this time, anyone that would like to pick up that mantle and run with it?
Weren't you initially interested back when?
I was initially interested, and then, she had expressed interest, and I jumped on the trash committee because I said, well, I've got some experience there, and I love cracking numbers, so I jumped there. But yeah, I think Mike said it's once a month. What was it?
Yes, sorry, it's not a huge time commitment for community preservation. Community preservation is typically more so around the budget season, so there's usually a meeting, I want to say, in the winter time. We just met, I think, last week, and then there'll be another meeting in January, and then probably another meeting in February, and then they really won't meet until the following year around the same time frame, November, December. There may be a reason to call a meeting if something comes up, but usually the CPC administrator takes care of the day-to-day, and it's really only if a vote needs to occur or something of that nature. So it's really not a heavy time commitment.
What time are the meetings at?
The meetings are typically, the last one, there's no standard meeting time, but they seem to fall on a Tuesday, and they seem to be around 7 o'clock or so.
At night, right?
Yes. I think it was 6, actually, the last meeting was, I think, at 6 or 6:30.
I think I could probably handle that.
Really?
Yeah, I think so.
All right, I like it. Volunteer. So I will make the motion, if no one else objects, that we, this committee nominate Alec Wood to be the Community Preservation Committee appointee from FinCom.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion?
Sounds like a plan.
Seeing as there's no discussion, we'll start with a roll call vote. Mr. Wood?
Yes.
I also vote in the affirmative. Ms. Ravad?
Yep.
Mr. Scanlon?
Yes.
And Miss Melissa? Baker?
Yes.
Yes, okay,
Yes.
we have 5-0. Congratulations. Alex, you are now the proud member of
And thank you.
Community Preservation Committee appointment. So, this is good, moving right along. Fiscal 2024 budget updates. So, I believe at this point, we will hand it over to our most valued and trusted town administrator, Miss Oldham. Or is it Oldham? I forget which.
I think it really quick.
Oh,
She does everything quick. You slow it down and it becomes, it's not as appealing.
quick, but very accurately.
So I don't have much.
I don't have much to add, other than the information that Melissa had sent out from the town accountant. Everything seems to be tracking in order, so I don't foresee there to be any issues. There's no accounts that we flagged at this point in time that we're watching very closely. We are still early in the year, but so far we are looking good, and we continue to monitor as needed.
Super. I forget, I can't recall. What was in the ice and snow budget this year?
It was level funded from the last fiscal year. I can pull it up, though.
There was about 225?
That sounds accurate.
I'm just thinking about it because as I looked out a couple of nights ago, there were snowflakes.
It's so cold.
And I said, holy cow, already? Can we stop now? What happened to global warming?
So the snow and ice was level funded at $225,000, you're correct.
What a memory. Okay. Does anyone else have any comments, concerns, et cetera, on the 2024 budget update or the October budget analysis? Melissa?
No, I'm all good.
Okay. Alex?
Nope, I'm fine.
Mr. Scanlon?
Good to go.
Ms. Ravad?
No, I'm good.
Oh, this meeting's just getting too easy here. I mean, we're just flying along. I'm sorry, Melissa. This is not the way it really goes. I feel bad that you're not here. Okay, so we've got the 2025 budget update. And I imagine, again, we will pass the mic on to our valued and trusted town administrator.
Yes,
Ms.
thank you.
Rebecca.
So not much of an update at this point in time. We are looking at our revenue projections for fiscal year 2025. We don't anticipate that to really be much of a increase other than what we capture in new growth for the upcoming fiscal year. Everything else seems like it's going to come in pretty much as it is for fiscal year 25. And now that we've gotten a chance to review our FY23 actuals compared to budget, we're able to get a better sense of where we'll fall this fiscal year as well. So we're starting to assemble that information. We are working to get our budget organized and up and running on ClearGov, which is a platform that we use for our operating budget that we release over to our departments, and they can input information. as we've discussed at our prior meetings, we will be using that as a digital budget book. We will be able to print copies of that for those members that would like it, but that will be what we use to review their narrative as to what it is that they're requesting, as well as their mission and goals, as has been done years prior. So we are getting that up and running so that we can send that out to departments. I'm hoping that I'll be able to send that out to departments by Friday of next week. Before the holiday, so that they can get the information in time so that they can add some additional details. We are also taking a look at what we should be exploring with a cost of living increase. Standard, we've always gone through and offered a 2% unless there were contractual obligations that we had. We do have negotiations coming up with the highway union as well as water and sewer and the dispatchers. I have not heard from them in terms of when they're looking to negotiate, but hopefully we can do that shortly so that we're prepared for the budget. But all those other members at the last meeting, we were able to provide increases based upon the Collins wage and classification study that came forward. So there are some members who saw a big increase as opposed to what they had in prior years. So I was hoping maybe to get some feedback in terms of what the board was thinking for a cost of living increase, if they would like to explore the 2%, or given the way that the economy is and given that the 2% isn't really reflective of what it is, if they would explore maybe a 2.5% or 3%. Or if we're not even ready to entertain those types of conversations. But it's information that I would like to be able to share with departments that we are having those conversations. So even if we are to get the budget out, we can adjust those salaries later on depending on what the board thinks. So if we want to have that conversation tonight, or if we want to put that on for an upcoming agenda, I would recommend that we do have that conversation.
Super. Now, what, if anything, is new coming online as far as revenue? I know I see the new self-storage facility going in down there on Salem Street. Is there any other housing coming in or coming online that is going to add any revenue to what we already have?
So I've been talking with the building commissioner. We've been talking about the 40B development over on Sewell Street and when they're pulling their permits and when we can expect to see those fees come in. So that will be a building permit increase in terms of the fees for that fiscal year. And then once they start building, because once they build building permit, they're going to have to start building, then we could potentially see new growth from that development. And it is phased, so we can capture the new growth as that development takes its time and gets up and running. So there's the storage facility, there's that particular development. I think that the upcoming fiscal year, there may be a few more lots over on the subdivision for Katy Lane. I'm not entirely sure that they've constructed all the houses up there. I know that there's potential development over at 912 Salem Street, I want to say, behind Nicole's Mini Mart. There's a potential developer looking at doing additional contractor yard type of setup. So there'll be some new growth over there. So there's a couple of developments, smaller in size, other than the 40B, of course, that will become more revenue generating for the community. And we are still exploring 150 Center Street, but that's not something that's going to be realized in the next few years.
I didn't realize in my lifetime. Most of the things that are coming online won't have an impact on the other side, but the 40B will. That's going to stress the infrastructure of the town. Has there been any talk about that side of the equation?
There has been conversations with both police and fire about the potential impact to their services. As we've seen in just historic data, when you have dense living quarters like that, more accidents seem to happen. There's more civil disturbances and things of that nature. So they haven't actually correlated that to what will be required in terms of the infrastructure that we have on hand. If there was something that would happen, we do have the infrastructure in place to accommodate. It's more so the capacity and the staffing in order to address those types of situations that would occur.
Now, how about water and sewer?
They originally, during the process, needed to confer with DEP in terms of the aquifer and how much water that they had to pull from the earth, so that was all something that they had done. For sewer, we pump over to Haverhill, so I believe that conversations were had with Haverhill through our intermunicipal agreement in order to make sure that there was enough capacity on that end. But those are all regulated under Mass DEP, so I know that our water and sewer superintendent has been communicating with the developer, and they've been talking to the appropriate organizations.
Electric as well.
Yes. I do know that there was a study that the developer had to do in order to show that there was capacity.
And still, there's only one egress.
As I understand it
moment.
now, there is only one, that is correct. Well, no, there's only one actual egress, but there is an emergency access that they are constructing, if I remember correctly, that comes up Nelson Street. So there'll be a gate that you can't pass, so if you were going to visit or live there, you couldn't use it, but if there was an emergency, there would be a secondary egress.
Good. That's all I have on the subject. Melissa, you have anything on you'd like to speak to?
Nothing comes to mind right now. I think, like, we said, just a lot of the development is, the revenue side and not necessarily expense side. So it's just a matter of watching that other side come together.
Agreed. Jim?
Well, the 40B will certainly have some impact on additional students. So that's another thing along with the infrastructure. So,
That, unfortunately, is the one thing that we could not mention in our objection to it,
yeah.
believe it or not. Even after the state told us to the square foot how big that new building had to be. And basically, we've got to suck it up and absorb everything else. Didn't make sense to me, but
I mean, it's a reality, but I'm a proponent of any larger developments. 40B, we don't have a say on, that the planning board can advertise as 55 and older, as there are no children involved with that. I lived in an over 55. It's all plus to the municipality. There's no children, there's no school, there's nothing. The revenue is untouched. So I mentioned it a few years ago with the planning chairman. That's one way to manage it. It's like the new buildings for Groveland Auto and Daniels Electric and Baldini Plumbing and HVAC. They're a positive on what they pay in real estate taxes, and I thank them for that. So unfortunately, I see the 40B is going to happen, and that's the way it is. We're not the only ones with a 40B. Merrimack is facing it. I don't think West Newbury is, but it is what it is, So that's all I have to say.
Ruth?
I don't have any other questions specifically about the budget, but when Rebecca opened up her statement, she asked if we wanted to talk about a cost of living recommendation tonight or at another meeting. And I don't think that we've addressed that.
No.
So whether you think we should talk about that or whether you think we should pause that and talk about the next meeting, or, I'm
I'm not king of anything. You ask my wife, I'm not even king of my house. So, my opinion is I'd like to wait for Melissa to be here. I'd also like to have some stronger revenue numbers so I know what we're dealing with. I'd also like to know how the Whittier building is going, how that's going to impact the budget before I can commit to anything.
Well-
There's so many variables right now that,
I think can I just make one comment about the Whittier building? If the Whittier building is passed and our town needs to come up with those funds, it's not going to happen by cutting any, I mean, we need to come up with a plan for that. I feel like that needs to be a conversation and a thought process completely outside of anticipating and managing our fiscal year 2025 budget, because saving $5,000 here and $5,000 there is going to change how we manage our town. It's not really going to change our debt obligation to Whittier. The debt obligation to Whittier is massive, and to me, that's a totally separate issue. That would need to be addressed. I think we still need to do business as usual as far as what our expectations are for this year's budget.
I mean, if you want to talk about cost of living adjustments, I'm fine with it. I would rather wait till we have Melissa here, but if you want to discuss it and
I'm
give
just
your
trying to
opinion.
respond to what the town administrator,
The only reason I brought it up is that historically, it moving forward with the budget process for the budget update as the conversation originated, one of the things that we'll be doing is that we noticed that with the Collins Center, one of the things that we had done with the job classifications in the survey is that we brought people up as much as we possibly could with the monies that we had. And so that is kind of how we got into trouble in the first place, is that we never really increased those, and it was a larger jump instead of a smaller jump because we had never really accurately reflected the cost of living that was happening around us and the value of those positions. So when we go forward with the budget process this year, we plan on locking the salaries so that they can't touch them, because it becomes a very convoluted process as to who's requesting what and who's going before what. And so it becomes a matter of control for the board to set the standard. And so, it's kind of been a free-for-all, but now that we've had this process and we've got the jobs descriptions and we've had the survey done to compare to comparable communities, I think it's time to set that structure and to make sure that we're recognizing that as a collective sum moving forward. So if it is to business as normal and we wanted to continue on with the 2% because there was a larger bump this last fiscal year, then that's a position of the board to take, and we'll proceed in that nature. If they think that a little bit more, based upon the economy and things that they're seeing on the other side, then that's acceptable too. So it wasn't, or if there's no need to have a cost of living increase because the finances are in disarray, which they're not right now, then that's also an option in the prerogative of the board. I just want to set a more structured process as to how we go about those wage increases so that it doesn't get to the point where we have to call in another third party to say, whoa, what is going on? Who's doing what? What's this person doing? Who are they being compared to? And what data are you pulling to go before a board and say you deserve A, B, and C? That kind of thing. That was my only reason for bringing it up as part of the budget update, is I just wanted a little bit more guidance, whether it's now or later, it doesn't have to be now, as to what that would look like, because I think it's important, and I think it should be in this board's purview.
So, no, my understanding was that Collins Center helped us bring the majority of the employees up to where they should be equal to other towns, other jobs of similar duties and responsibilities. So we brought most of them up to on par with the rest of the world last year. So we're starting it even. So now it's one on top of that, based on the cost of living, you're saying, which I don't know what the CPI was last year, but I have to believe it's more than 5%.
Yes. So, but I would not be proposing that in our environment and given what we have for our budget, et cetera, but whether or not it was going to be something along the lines of the historical 2%, or whether or not
No.
a potential 2.5% would be something that would be, something that would be considered or suggested as.
No, I think we need to address that during our budget reviews, because as you know, we used to use the peanut butter approach, 2% for all non-contractual employees. That was a standard set by the selectmen. So I think you're right. We need to be careful that we don't lose good people, because there are many openings in many municipalities that are looking for people. So we need to try to take a look at that. I agree with that. So, not that municipal and civil service workers are going to get highly paid, but we need to pay some attention to this. So, to your point, it gets, as time goes on, that we would get the lag, they're behind. So, it's a good idea.
Okay, so I'll work on the revenue numbers, and then I'll work with Melissa and see whether or not she'd like to put this on the next agenda, and maybe we'll have some more concrete numbers and see exactly what the board would like to do moving forward.
Yeah. I think it's something that we should think about and talk about, and we should talk about it and think about it in context of what are the competing priorities. Were there other serious wants and needs that were not addressed last year that are now higher on the priority list, and take that into consideration with what we were able to accomplish last year, see what got left behind, and talk about all of those together.
Yeah, the other thing is I kind of agree with Jim. I was never in favor of the peanut butter approach, slap 2% over everything. Some careers advance further than others. It's just the way it is. I didn't make the rules, just try to follow them as best as I can. Some careers are going to grow at 1.5% a year, some groups are going to grow at 3.5%. You've got to be able to be flexible enough so that, to Jim's point, you don't lose valuable people over 1% or 2% to make them, marketable somewhere else with the skills they've gained here. We want to keep those people
Right.
here with the experience, skills they've gained here. It behooves us, because it costs more to retrain those people, and hopefully you get somebody that really is as committed to the town as what we have now. That's not easy. Alex?
No, I think that's a good idea. I don't have any further comment, really. I mean, it's good to retain folks instead of letting them leave and then retrain them. There's a cost to that, so. It's just the problem is like what percentage, right? And I think that's what everyone's trying to, they should get something. It shouldn't be unreasonable, but it shouldn't be, 10% raise year over year, so.
It also needs to be within our budget.
Budget, right?
We raise our taxes by 2.5%, and we know that there's other
Yeah.
expenses that go up by more than that.
Right.
I do think one other thing to consider is whether, if we can somehow consider also salaries that are on a lower absolute basis, when you adjust everybody, say, by 2% every year, the lower end of that range can get behind over time.
That's how you get the wage gap over time, exactly.
So that would also be, whether or not we come up with some sort of a strategy to address that in a forward-thinking basis.
That's exactly what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
And just some guidance as to what the board would like to do on that front.
Yep, I think that's,
That'll be your most difficult challenge.
I'm sure that there's metrics and protocols that, are recommended.
It's just all people don't fit into those neat little boxes sometimes, and it's unfortunate. Some people just bigger than a box, and some people get lost in the box. So we'll move on to the State of the School District Report and Regional Agreement discussion with Pentucket Regional School District, which I know Ms. Rebecca attended, and Ms. Castronellis attended, and I saw Selectman Naves attend, as well as Ms. Ravad and myself attended. I found it extremely informative. I think you can watch it on tape, right?
We're there, it's running on the channel.
For those that haven't seen it, it is quite enlightening. I learned a lot of things that I didn't know before. I wasn't shy to ask, try to educate myself on some of these things. But I'm going to pass that baton to Ms. Rivard because she's so much more detailed with absorbing a lot of things that are said than I think I am, so. Give us a Reader's Digest condensed version of
Well,
what your opinion was and how you thought it went.
so I think that they talked about a lot of metrics of the school where some of their scores have improved over time and how the school has redirected. There was a lot of talk about budget and different components of the budget. They talked a lot about the 15% increase in the out-of-district spending. Am I saying that correct? That was, to me, a little bit confusing because that was something that happened last year and has already been budgeted for this year. And so I felt like there was when we were I felt like it was a going forward meeting and there was some confusion as to issues that have already been addressed versus what we're currently addressing going forward for this year. But overall, I think they said, the school is, with the override that passed last year, they talked about the positions that were reinstated and how they want to manage going forward. And like you said, it is advertised, some are being replayed. And then they talked about the regional agreement and just West Newbury. Angus Jennings, the town manager from West Newbury, talked about some of the different points that they were proposing that they changed, which I think we've all reviewed. And, I mean, I don't think any of those changes were going to directly impact us adversely at all. I think that they were pretty standard. But yeah, we'll see once the budget numbers come forward. I'm hoping that with the override, that they're able to reposition and let us have a year to sort of try to regain our footing within our own town hall as well.
Yeah, I know, to your point, they have been met with some real challenges with in-district and out-of-district, the special education unit. And that's always difficult because it's never funded, and it seems to me that it's funded in arrears. You really have to spend the money in year one, you get the money back in year two. But it's always finding the money in year one before you get it back in year two. They also did mention that, some of the federal funding is down from $240,000 in 2019 to $100,000 in 2023. It's they've got some challenges there. To their benefit, they've sought a lot of grants and received some, $30,000 for the, boy, I wish I could read my handwriting now, but I can't.
Robotics?
They have a NASA grant for robotics, but they've got another $30,000 grant for security. That's it, security and communications. So that's something that we won't have to spend on. That they've done some good work there. But going forward, they've got some challenges as well as we do. But overall, I was encouraged by the fact that they are going to try to toe the line this year, knowing that we have some challenges ourselves that we had to overcome last year, and we don't really need any this year if we can help it. We'll see how it goes and keep our fingers crossed. But overall, I mean, I came away with the impression that it was a positive kind of thing. Anybody else want to comment on it? Did they see it? I know they went there, but they might have viewed it on television in the meantime. Alex?
Haven't seen it yet.
Jim?
No, I didn't see it on TV.
Melissa?
I did actually watch it, the replay of it. And, like Ruth said, there's a lot of good information and where the school has progressed in, many areas. And, obviously we have to see, the numbers that they come up with and, understanding, the changes, because I've had some concerns watching, announcements of hirings and, things that are going on that seem to be more on an overhead basis than, an operating and a need base. So I have some concerns that they've been fully transparent with us, but definitely better than they have been in the past.
Yeah, to your point, Melissa, I know what you mean. It seems that with a dwindling student population, we're adding more non-teaching positions to the budget. And that is kind of, I wouldn't say, I'm not going to say worrisome, but it is cause to kind of keep an eye on. You would think that numbers would go the opposite way, but we'll see.
Can I make one other comment on that note?
Absolutely.
Being at that meeting did make me think, as we consider our budgets, at what point would we want to invite, or should we be making sure that we're reaching out to our school, to the Groveland's representative on the school committee, and invite them to any of our budget meetings? I think it might be helpful for them to see where our struggles are and understand that as they take into consideration their votes on the school budget, or even communication, any way that they may want to report back to the school committee and the school administration. I just think it would be, they've opened their communication to us, they've invited us to some meetings, and I just think if we put that out there and invite them to our meetings, it could be also beneficial.
Bazillion% agree, and I think was one of the big failures in the last couple of years, that the school committee and the finance committees in the respective towns weren't as attached to the hip as they should have been, where they really didn't understand how much money was in the pocketbook. And better communication, I think, will help solve that problem, where if they know ahead of time they have X amount in the pocketbook, well, they know they can't spend Y. And then they can work on that side to kind of control these costs, knowing that, hey, listen, I can't spend what I don't have.
Or know what is the give and take,
So that we can understand what their side of it is as well. You're right. Because understanding each side's struggles helps us all hopefully develop the best solutions.
Right. I mean, maybe we have a position or two that we would like to restore in our town hall, and that can only happen with, some sort of checks and balances in place on it, a small percentage difference to our school budget is a big, big deal to our town hall and what we can afford to run our own government.
Sure. That they can figure out, hey, we need one less hall monitor. That might, get us another extra part-time driver for the Council on Aging.
Yeah,
Every little bit.
yeah.
You watch the pennies and the dollars take care of themselves, I agree. But I thought that we actively or proactively sought to make that relationship stronger this year than in pasts for that sole purpose. So I think an invite, and when Melissa gets back, I think, they should be put on the agenda periodically so that we can just stay in touch and on the same page. Let's face it, 64 cents of every dollar we get in goes that way. We ought to really be attached at the hip there, right? Alex?
No, I think these are great ideas. I think two of the things that kind of struck me, and I haven't watched the video, so I'll do my homework and catch up on it, but you had noted that the federal aid has dropped year over year.
That's the way it was presented to us, correct. And, the federal government is famous for initiating programs like No Child Left Behind and Head Start, and then never fully funding it.
Yeah.
Leaving it to the states to fully fund, and the states can't fully fund it, so they leave it to the cities and towns to fully fund, and the cities and towns can't fully fund. So we get into this, rabbit hole where, we're under these mandates to do these certain things, but we don't have the funding to do any of them.
Yeah, so I guess with that being said, is that something we need to be concerned about this year or next year?
It's always something to be.
Is that like why we keep ponying up so much cash is because federal funding or grants or something, Because when you said that drop was exponential, and I'm sitting here, I'm like, okay, how much, like, what's the stopgap? Are we the ones that are gonna help, that, school system not bleed out? Like, is that on us? And is it gonna get worse year over year?
It has gotten worse. I'd say it's been trending that way. It's a matter of, we involve the legislators, we ask. How effective that is, I don't know. I don't really know. I know that and Rebecca may be able to speak more of this because, more specifically to this, at least now the tri-town, town managers and administrators are getting together, and I know that the superintendents also have a coalition. They all get together. So there is some sort of unified effort. But all of the state funding always says subject to appropriation. And, they've given us money that they've taken away before. The change, the $100,000, I don't think that that's what's making or breaking.
Not in a budget that big.
It's
But-
it's a little bit of everything, but then it's
the non-reimbursable of transportation costs, which, the state legislature voted to reimburse 100% when you regionalize a school district. Well, we have yet to be reimbursed 100% for transportation costs. So, they make up a lot of these laws, but again, they don't fully fund them, or they don't do what they say they're gonna do at the end of the day. And it's a matter of, we can talk till we're blue in the face, but until we change the butts and the seats at the elected officials, spot, that they prioritize education over some of these other things, I don't know.
So it's not like an imminent cause for concern, right? Like a Whittier type of event.
No, geez.
That's basically where I was going with this. The numbers shocked me a bit, and so. And then another thing that was said that was kind of surprising was their student enrollment's down, but yet they're hiring more. Was that a fair statement, or did I take that out of?
Last year, during the presentation, we saw that overall student enrollment had trending downward. But the number of administrators seemed to be slightly trending upward in some areas, which, again, if you're gonna hire teachers to keep classrooms from being overcrowded, because that doesn't serve anyone any purpose, doesn't serve the school, doesn't serve the student, right, to have an overcrowded classroom. But as student population decreases, I would think you would need less of your
Right.
overhead,
Right.
like any other business, right? You need less middle management if you're employing 100 people as opposed to 500 people, right? So I don't think it's a cause for concern today, but it's something I think we should keep an eye on to make sure they don't get, like any organization, gets too fat and bloated at the top,
Yeah.
and then forgets to serve the people that the mission is designed to do.
Okay, so it's kind of trending that way. Yeah, all right. That's it.
The only thing I would like to add is that as part of the conversation about the regional agreement, there was a discussion that while the regional agreement has not yet been adopted, that the model for the advisory committee be the starting base for us to move forward with having a more detailed conversation about the proposed changes. So as the agreement is drafted, it had mentioned that there be a finance board member and a board of selectmen member, as well as the town finance director or administrator, would make up that group. And I know that the other communities are selecting individuals to partake in that conversation, to finalize that language, to bring it back to the communities for a vote at the town meeting in the spring. So I don't know if the board would like to make a nomination of an individual to represent the finance board, or if the finance board has an issue with proceeding in that nature, since it's not necessarily agreed upon officially, if you will. It's just kind of the draft of what was put forward for the advisory committee.
I'm all for it.
We should wait till Melissa's here.
Well, I was gonna nominate Melissa, but, yeah, okay, we can do that. We put up other things because it's important, the chair should be here during those discussions, I think.
How did the Whittier School, when do all the communities either yay or nay at, like the city of Haverhill?
January.
Are we all in sync on,
It's January 23rd, I believe, is the election date.
for 24, January, this January?
Yes, correct.
And that's for all affected towns?
Yes, that's correct. All 11
Same
member
day.
communities. Yes. Same time, same
11
day.
to 7. Dead of winter.
I did invite the superintendent as well as the school committee member for Whittier to attend tonight's meeting, since Whittier was on the agenda, as a way for them to be able to advocate for the project that they put forward. I also had this on the draft agenda for the Board of Selectmen. I did receive an email just a few minutes ago that they were not able to make it tonight, but they do plan on making it for the 20th meeting, and that's with the Board of Selectmen at 6:30 for anyone who'd be interested in attending. I do also want to make note, if we're talking about Whittier, that they have canceled their public engagement session that was originally scheduled for November 18th. I will be making an announcement on our social media pages and our website to alert residents that that meeting is no longer taking place. However, I just want to get the Board of Selectmen agenda posted, because I will use that as a segue for any residents who wanted to attend the engagement session to attend the Board of Selectmen meeting and/or tune in and watch the recording, so that they can learn a lot more about what it is that the school district is putting forward, and why it is that they're taking the approach that they're taking, and going about it the way that they are.
Awesome. Anyone else have any other comments on this subject? Or the Whittier Vocational High School project? Melissa, you all good?
I was just going to add, I did watch one of the recordings for their community events, and it is a very heated conversation between the residents and the superintendent about understanding, how they got to this place, and, why is it really not really been like really out into the community that this was kind of coming down the pipeline. Yes, there were random announcements here and there. People asked about why the dead of January for a meeting. And she explained how that kind of came about in terms of having to meet requirements once the plan is approved, and they have so many days. And so it was a good insight into it. So, I mean, they are posted on the Whittier website if anyone wants to watch them. But it was definitely a good opening to understanding everything.
We're running the school committee meetings too, as well.
Aye. Awesome. Okay, if there's nothing else, we'll move on to town administrator updates.
I only have the one. I am still looking to finalize the capital improvement plan. I'm just about done. I have the town side of things squared away. I do have a meeting with Hilltop Securities, our town accountant and our treasurer collector, to discuss one of the opportunities to continue on with level funding where we currently are with our debt services, and allowing us to take on some other improvements that are necessary, so there would be no impact to the budget But at the same time, we would be able to further move along with some of the improvements that are greatly needed and of a larger sum of monies. So I am having that conversation with them on Monday, so I'm hoping to finalize those details. Once I get those finalized, I'm hoping to have the plan available for the Finance Board and the Board of Selectmen at their first meetings in December. I've also been communicating with the school about their capital improvement plan, which is part of our capital improvement plan, specifically in the way of Bagnell Elementary School. So they had their new facilities director, Jonathan Seymour, has been great to work with. It's been a really great process, kind of formalizing a lot of the procedures that were happening in the past.
Getting a lot of feedback. Doing that?
I'm not.
You hear that humming?
So it's been a good process. So they're just finalizing their capital plan. So once they get theirs finalized, they'll be sending that over to us to include. I think that one of the things that we were planning on doing is utilizing the additional or unused funds that were associated with the borrowing in FY20 for the new school, and utilizing that as it was designated, I think $113,000 total to be used of like terms for a project in our elementary school. So I think we're looking to capitalize on that and working with the facilities team to make sure that we're adequately addressing those needs. I also wanted to let the Finance Committee know that I am still going to put the capital plan on the Board of Selectmen agenda if the chair so allows it. Because I've been approached by the fire chief, and there is an opportunity to take advantage of the supply in order to receive one of the a new Command 1 vehicle. And so as it's proposed in the draft plan that I have yet to finish, it's to utilize American Rescue Funds, which we've been using as grant-type monies to associate with capital projects. This was a project that was listed on the capital plan last fiscal year, but was not funded. So based upon the analysis, we were putting forward that it be funded this year. But again, because of the supply issue and because of the need for maintenance on the current vehicle and the monies that we're spending on the current vehicle, he has requested that I expedite that as much as I possibly can. So I will be informing the board, as I informed you all this evening, that I am still in the process of finalizing the details of the plan. I'm pretty much there. I just have a couple more items to do. But that the chief has requested that we move forward with grantings of the American Rescue Funds for the vehicle, and still moving about with the capital plan, but again, using the Board of Selectmen as a way to access those funds sooner rather than later, as opposed to the majority of our other funding, which takes place in July 1. So he'll have more details as to why the urgency is there, and he'll be present at the meeting to speak to such and explain such. But I did want to make sure that the Finance Board was fully aware that that was the plan, that we're not really reviewing the plan. There's no hidden agenda other than trying to, again, capitalize on some timing issues. So if there's any concerns or anyone has anything to add about that, please let me know.
Cool. That's it?
Yep.
All right, short and quick. So, that leaves us to planning our next meeting. So as I look at the calendar, Melissa, I'm looking at the third Wednesday in December being the 20th.
Yes, that was what was on the proposed meeting dates.
Okay, is everyone still good with the 20th? Alex?
Tentatively,
Tentatively? I'm good. I have no life, basically, so I'm good with the 20th. Ruth?
Looks okay.
Fine with me.
Okay, so we've got enough people, so the next meeting will be December 20th, Wednesday evening at 6 PM. So we've got that out of the way.
December what?
20.
December 20th, 2-0, 6 PM, or as close to as possible.
So the capital budget will be ready for us to take a peek at that next meeting.
That's correct. And as soon as it's completed, I'll send it over so you have plenty of time to review before then.
Are we still going to do a 5-year lookout, a 10-year lookout?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Is there I used to get a listing from the finance director, when I was chair of this board, a runoff of the CIC projects and the expenditures to date and what the original amount was for. Can we get that?
For the, for capital improvement plans? I can try and assemble something, yes.
Yeah, because I used to get that. I'm just curious on how many projects are ongoing, how much they cost. Some of them have been dormant for years.
So that's why I think I'll have to take a look at what she has for, or what the former finance director has for records, because I know that
Well,
it's
she gave me, it was a report.
from like the accounting system or something?
I don't know how she did it, but,
Okay. I'll take a look at that and I'll do what I can in order to get you that.
well, unless, you know, the capital improvement committee's gonna, Dempsey's gonna produce one, but I haven't seen one in a long time.
Okay.
None of us, and that's a capital expenditure as well, except it has more benefits than the plan we have inside the town. Okay, if you can, if not, I'll send a request.
If you have what a former document looks like, if you have that available, that would be super helpful.
I'll see if I still have, she used to email it to me. I'll look.
If you
Okay.
do, it would be very
That
helpful.
would be helpful, okay.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
All right, I guess we'll move right along to other items not reasonably anticipated at the time of posting. So we'll start with you, Alex. Anything you want to say? Get off your chest?
No, I'm all set.
Good recipe you want to give us? No, nothing?
Nothing.
Okay.
Nothing?
Ruth?
I'm
Nope.
all set.
Jim? Melissa?
No, I just want to thank everyone for their continued involvement, and I want to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving.
Yes, you stole my thunder. Absolutely.
Sorry.
That's okay. You're the chair. You get that right. To reiterate Melissa's point, thank you, everyone, for showing up. This really is a very important role that you all play a part in. Thank you, Miss Oldham. As usual, you are your typical professional self and wealth of information. Thanks to our videographer over there, Chris. Great job. And wish everyone a healthy and happy Thanksgiving holiday. Hopefully you get to spend a lot of time with your family, even if you don't like them. And don't eat too much. So on that, can we have a motion to adjourn?
I make an motion to adjourn.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. Melissa, roll call.
Yes.
Jim?
Yep.
Ruth?
Yes.
Alex? And I also vote in the affirmative. Thank you very much, folks. Have a good evening.
All right.
That wasn't too bad, an hour, 5 minutes.